Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Craster the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire podcast. This is Follow-Up Friday, where we answer all of your ravens throughout the week and, get really deep and, immersed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sweaty. Yeah, just filthy, dirty. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, well, Sir Matt, I made it, Sir Ezra. I made the trek across the country.
Yeah, you did.
I did not die, although it may sound like I did, because I definitely have a cold, a summer chill. To say the least. When I arrived, I was like, oh man, I think my immune system just collapsed from eating Cliff Bars for about 3 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like, you. Every time I thought of you, and I would call you on your way out there, I just thought of you on the open road. I was hoping you had your mead, your meat, your cheese, some bread.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Yeah. So the first day I drove from, about the Columbus, Ohio area to just a little past Lincoln, Nebraska. And that was actually, I think, my favorite drive of the day. It was interesting. It took me a weird way through Ohio, because normally I think you would go south and then go like 70 west, but it took me a northern route through some state highways, like 23 west or 30 west or something like that. And I ended up going north kind of by Chicago. I had to pay 2 tolls, which was funny. The first toll, it was like 60 cents, or it was 70 cents. And I tried to give the lady at the toll booth, I only had a $10 bill. I didn't have a smaller bill. She's like, I can't take that. I'm like, well, I have 60 cents.
What?
Yeah. And so she just took 60 cents. I was like, thank God. And then I got to another toll, and the lady took my 10, and it was like $1.30 or something. So.
Wow. So you didn't know you were going to be hitting the tolls there. You had no idea.
Well, I kind of did, but I didn't. I thought they would be like a couple bucks or something.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that was interesting. And then let me tell you, my favorite state actually to drive through was Iowa. I was just like blown away at how beautiful of a state Iowa is. Because like Nebraska is, it's flat, and there's a lot of like, crops like corn and stuff like that. And right now I think everything is still kind of green, and you've got these like huge fields. But, Nebraska and Wyoming are very flat, whereas Iowa's just got these like rolling hills. And I was just driving at it was like, starting to get a little bit darker, and it was beautiful. It was just beautiful to drive through. So, yeah. So then the second day I drove from just past Lincoln, Nebraska to about Salt Lake City. And then the third day I did Salt Lake City to Oregon. And so that day was really interesting, because I was driving through Idaho in the morning, and the sun was coming up, and it was like coming up and like over these like mountainous terrains. It was actually a pretty good driving experience. Car ran okay, which I was actually kind of nervous about. But it was funny, you and I were talking what happened back in the day when you would just if you broke down without cell phones.
Yeah. It's crazy. And we were saying that it wasn't that long ago that that we didn't have cell phones. You know?
Like, what did people do back in the day if you broke down? Did you just have to walk 50 miles or something to the nearest?
Or you had to know how to fix your car, I guess. I mean, I
don't know. So.
Well, didn't you say that you saw some ghost town type of?
Yeah, there would be these exits in Wyoming and Utah.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing. There's nothing there, and then there would be this exit that was a gas station that clearly people must have stopped at some point, but now is just desolate and empty. It's just okay, yeah.
Huh. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that was cool. I think I got to talk to you on your way to Salt Lake for a bit, and then just briefly, I think the next day. As you were getting ready to get into Oregon there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, man.
Oh, my spirit animal. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, I got to tell my spirit animal story. I was driving, and there's like farms, there's like cattle farms and stuff like that, and there was this. Well, in America, they're called bison. We don't actually have.
Oh yeah,
the buffalo, right? So a lot of people think
right.
buffalo are extinct in America. We killed them all. No, that's not actually the case. And actually, buffalo are we incorrectly call them buffalo in America. I guess they're like different in other countries or whatever. But there was like these bison, right? And there was like all these different bison, like kind of like standing up, and there's like this one just standing on this like rock, like in this field, just like this lone buffalo or bison standing on this rock, just kind of like looking out. And I was like, oh yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was interesting, but so made it out here, and as you can tell now, Sir Ezra and I are recording via the power of the Weirwood network, otherwise known as the internet. So
this has been an experience, and so I think we were going to tell folks just to kind of bear with us first couple weeks here, make sure everything goes. We like to maintain the quality, but I think we're going to try out a couple of different ways to see which way is the best.
Yeah, we've done some things in some other projects in the past, and it works. It's not a matter of it working or not. It's just a matter of quality, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to increase the quality of the show. So we're gonna try some. I mean, there's plenty of other podcasts, bigger podcasts than us that do it, and so we're just figuring it out and kind of learning as we go. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think one of the best ways we could improve the quality would be if I would just shut up half the time and let Sir Matt talk a little.
Yeah. So.
Oh man. Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah. I'm glad you made it out there safe. And honestly, it's this is exciting. I mean, I now have a vacation destination.
Yeah. Hey, got a guest room, beds in there, queen size bed. Anybody who wants to come out, it's open. I'm opening it to the show. Okay.
Okay. Seriously, I will gather my 7 and we will be out there. I mean, come on. We may have to middle bed it there in the guest bedroom.
Yeah,
that's
may
fine.
Have to. Yeah. So open invitation. So. All right. Well, yeah. Excuse my summer chill here. So, trivia. I was receiving all kinds of texts and Facebook messages. Sorry, I didn't respond to those because I was driving. And you know what they say: stop the text, stop the wrecks. So I could not really respond, but the winner once again was Adam Parker. Last week's question was, what is the name of the ancestral seat of House Reed? It is Greywater Watch.
Yes. Yeah. Well done. Yeah, I saw those messages coming through, and I just thought to myself, I wanted to save something for Sir Matt to look at when he got to the hotel. So. But they were definitely people were. It's funny. We like when you get busy like that, you can kind of see how your partner, Matt being occupied. I was like, wow, look at all these coming through. Look at all this action. So it was cool. Really cool.
So, all right here. So we're going to go ahead and start with trivia. Again, this week, in what year did the tourney at Harrenhal take place? In what year did the tourney at Harrenhal take place? That may take some looking up to...
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal, guys. Pretty big deal. Tourney at Harrenhal. We love to talk about it, and I think we talked about it last week. Just a tidbit. I think we're going to talk about it more this coming Monday. I think that's what we said. We were saving sort of like we talked about the Fall of the Dragon, and then we were moving into the tourney. We did cover the tourney completely, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we covered that, and then we'll be getting into Robert's Rebellion. That's right. We left off with Lyanna being taken. So we were trying to figure out how far a league was.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we actually have a really interesting Raven here. I think I might actually, since I'll be explaining this one, I think I'll let you read this one, Sir Ezra.
Okay, yeah, I will read this. This is great. Hey, all, I'm a new listener. I was referred to you guys by Sir Matt the Bud Knight last night when I met him at the hotel I happened to be checking him into.
Mm-hmm.
His Game of Thrones shirt made me talk to him a bit, and he told me about BTK, Bend the Knee. I went home and listened to at least 4 episodes last night. I have to say I'm really impressed. I will be joining your Patreon on the next paycheck, and I'll be recommending this to my friends. And one, it's it's a thing since I work at a choice hotel. Oh, that's right. This is kind of neat. I have the option to get discounts for friends and family. If any of you three or any of you there are ever traveling somewhere, shoot me an email, and I can email you a discount link to any choice hotel in the area. Rates are typically $35 to $50 plus tax with the discount. Once again, thanks for your hard work. It's been great finding you, and can't wait to continue listening. Cheers, Tanner.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really cool. So I pulled into this hotel at in just it was around Salt Lake City. I think it was Ogden, Utah, actually. And I'm just wearing my Game of Thrones shirt, which actually I took a picture of because I was in Utah. I posted it on the group, and I was like, guys, I feel like I'm in the Red Mountains of Dorne. Which, first of all, let me tell you, that was super interesting because I was like, oh, they have this little thing you can walk up to and like take a picture, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And as I'm walking up, I'm like, looking at like the paths beside me. I'm like, what are all these holes in the ground?
Yeah,
and I was like, oh yeah, those are snake holes.
Good.
And then there was like a sign that said like "Be caution of rattlesnakes." So I was like, God.
Get out of there!
Like, out! As I'm like walking up this hill, I'm like, oh god. And so anyway, so I got up there, took some pictures. But yeah, so when I pulled into this hotel, I was like dead. Obviously, I was like felt like I was sunburned. I have an awesome car tan right now, where like just the hat, like one side of me is like really tan.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing my Game of Thrones shirt, and this guy's checking me in, and he's like, "Oh, I love your shirt." And then we just got to talking about it, and it was really cool because he said, just like most of our listeners, I feel like, are a lot of people who are show heavy. And he's like, "Yeah, I've watched the show." He's like, "I've heard the books are kind of quite different." And then I was kind of telling him about some of the big differences. I was like, "Really, I feel like it's kind of similar." I kind of explained to him how. Like the books or the show tends to kind of just take elements from the books and kind of just combine them into characters, just to kind of save time and stuff like that. And so I was just kind of explaining that to him.
Right.
And he was like, "Hey, I'll have to check it out." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I never expected that he would like send us a raven and all that. So it was super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That is pretty neat. I think you called me like the next day, like when we got it, and and I was sort of like, wait, what? Because I thought it was Tanner, like Tanner from the group, who we talked to. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But no, this is the guy. Or actually, I know what I originally thought was that you met Tanner, like our.
Yeah. Tanner Lawless, I believe.
Lawless.
Yeah, Lawless. Yeah.
Tanner Lawless. And I was like, holy smokes! What are the odds that that those two would run into each other? And then it's different guy. We have a new guy. This is awesome. So distinguish between the Tanners.
That's true. Yeah, and this Tanner, I'll call him Tanner Choice Hotel. I would absolutely take you up on that deal because I stayed at two choice hotels. The first one I stayed at, I accidentally booked a like room in the smoking section, and it was like horror. It was bad. It was
really.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah, it was like
they still have those, huh? I didn't.
Oh my god, it was like a pool hall, just like walking in, and it was like it was
wow.
It was gross. And so I like tried to I also like tried to wash like some of my clothes, and there wasn't like a laundromat, so I did it in like the bathtub. I just kind of used like some soap and stuff like that, and then I tried to dry them. And they had how some of those have like the heating in like the bathrooms, they have like the like the heat lamp thing you can turn on.
Lamp,
and so I was like, oh, okay, so I'll just like put these in here and I'll like turn the heat lamp on, and then it'll like and the heat lamp thing broke. Like I turned it on, like, and it shattered, like immediately, just like shattered, and there was like smoke coming out, and I was like, oh God, I'm about to like I'm about to catch this place on fire. It was like, now I got like no sleep that night. It was disastrous. And but then I got to this other one, and it was like could not be night and day difference. The one in Utah I stayed at, where I met this guy Tanner. Oh, dude, it was sweet. It was a sweet hotel. It was awesome.
Oh wow, that's crazy. That's great. Did you have to pay something for that light breaking there, or
No.
Okay, you just got out of there.
I got out of there. Yeah,
you got out of there. That's hilarious.
I got out of there. Well, I was also like really nervous about like parking my car because there's like stuff in it. I had like my computer monitor like covered up and stuff like that. And so then the one in Utah was also really nice because there's a police car and like in the parking lot, and so I just parked right next to it, and I was like, yeah, go ahead, please try and steal my stuff.
Right.
So.
Oh wow, that is great. I can just see it almost reminds me of like when Robert was injured and he's like laying low, moving from place to place. You're kind of like in this spot where you're trying to get a bit of rest, and you're like keeping an eye on the car. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So it was really nice meeting him. It was a really it was definitely it was a good story to tell. It was really fun. It was exciting.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on here. We've actually got an interesting arrangement of ravens, I think. And they're kind of also interrupted by a nice little Facebook discussion this week. I would just tell folks too up front, we are kind of I thought I would tell people this, Sir Matt, just so they understand, like, if we don't read their raven the same week they send it,
that's right.
It's okay. We're definitely gonna get to them. We have just rearranged how we stockpile and how we are going to use ravens.
Yeah. So we can just go ahead and tell people. So typically, Sir Ezra and I record on Thursday to get the show up for Friday, and then we record on Sundays to get the show up for Monday. But now that we're in different time zones, I think we're just going to record everything on Sundays. It'll still come out the same days. It's just a lot easier for us to also. Plus, we have other side projects and stuff like that, and so it's just a lot easier to just record everything on Sundays. And we also have, like, sometimes we have so many ravens that we just can't fit them all into 1 week. So, So.
Well, and the other thing is, as news comes out and stuff, I mean, obviously, if we know that that we have something, like we've recorded something and we need to find a way to kind of fit it into an episode, we might do that. We might, jump on, recent news, or if something comes out, we're definitely still going to respond to that. So as long as nothing like that is happening, and that's not to say we actually still will record on Thursdays. It's just kind of, it's not going to be every Thursday. It might be one out of every, 2 to 3. So.
Yeah, because sometimes people message us. There have been times where people have sent us a message, and we have put it in the show like that while we were recording it. Like, hey, we just got one literally right here. So
right, yeah. And and we want to reward people who haven't messaged in. I think nothing against our regular. We love our regular correspondence, but like if you're out there and you have something new and something you want to add to the show, feel free to send us a raven at btkcast at Gmail. So
absolutely.
Okay, so now the interesting array here of ravens. Let me get back to the old doc here. Our first one is going to come from Sir Jared, actually. I think, is that right? Yeah, Sir Jared of House Gebhardt. He sent us a message on Patreon here and just wanted to kind of start the show off, or the ravens here with this, really. He says, I'm not sure if this will make the show or not, but I wanted to discuss this with you guys. Something that we brought up on a recent show. You proposed that it was likely that Rhaegar wasn't actually at the Battle of the Trident, or he might have thrown the fight. While I agree, it appears Rhaegar was a tremendous tourney fighter, it also can be said that Robert was particularly good in melees. Coupled with Robert actually having fought battles in close quarters, Robert's size advantage, Robert's fury. I don't find it hard to believe that he could have struck down the Dragon Prince in single combat. Just my 2 cents on the matter. And as a Robert fan, I have to say I'm coming from a very biased position. So that's Sir Jared there. And I just initially, Sir Matt, I agree with it. There's actually, I mean, if Rhaegar was there,
right.
I totally believe that Rhaegar. That Robert could have taken him in a fight. I mean, I think that's what's cool about Robert. Actually, that's what makes Robert cool, is that he did strike down someone like Rhaegar. You know what I mean? and
Well,
it was
yeah, I
his
mean,
rebellion, and
absolutely. Well, and the interesting thing about Rhaegar is that we don't really know how skilled he was because he only wins one tournament. He kind of comes like in second and third in some other tournaments. And so
right.
it's just kind of odd that was it just the tourney at Harrenhal? Just that's where kind of the speculation comes in, and I think this is what we were talking about. Was he really that good? And he always just kind of held back, or did he just happen to win this tournament? Like this was the one where he's like, I really have to win this one. And Jaime Lannister, remember, wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing is that if what we learned in a World of Ice and Fire, if he was there to conspire and he actually had a plan to possibly win over Lyanna, maybe some lances were kind of tilted at the wrong angle, and he was allowed to win. Not saying, I mean, I again, just throwing that out there. I think Gus is going to jump all over me again here for speculating a little too crazy, but like it's just in my mind, there's a lot of nothing's really set in stone here at the tourney at Harrenhal. I think like there are some things that we can say this happened, that happened, etc. But like motivations, other players, things like I don't know, just why they were there, what they were working towards, this whole piece. I think you could make a case that Rhaegar, either was allowed to win it or he knew that he had to win it, so he worked extra hard at it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, we see sometimes like some people maybe Rhaegar might just be better in tourneys and not better in melees. Like we see this with like Duncan the Tall, right? Duncan the Tall, like in a melee, is supposed to be like a boss, but he's like, I'm not very good with a.
With Lance, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So, I would just continue to say that I think Sir Jared's right. That Robert could have absolutely taken him, in single combat. But I think our question sometimes is, was he even there? Was Rhaegar actually there? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would be. I could honestly see, with the mention of the moonstones and the rubies and stuff like that, that have been in this entire series and glamours and things. I can see why people speculate and wonder about the battle of the Trident there. So.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
anything?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was just gonna say, and one other thing is that they're fighting in this river, and so maybe that's another thing where in an open field, even with close quarters, maybe that's a difference where if they were on foot as well. But from the pictures we've seen is that Rhaegar and Robert are fighting on horse, so that could also be a difference in in the battling too. So that's just there's like it's just so different, in the fighting styles.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of when we had, I think it was Sam the Hammer. We were having the conversation about the Valyrian, hammer. Actually, remember we were getting real into like, like what could it do?
Right, would the way if it was like it's all about like the density and the speed and the
force
and the heaviness and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh gosh, just makes me think. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right here. So we have one here from Lady Jade. There's a book theory. Happy weekend, guys. I hope you're having a good time. I am nursing a hangover and I'm going to a festival in a few hours. Apart from Helena, I have always found the Tyrells a little boring until I read a theory that they are playing Cersei at her own game. I don't think this ever occurred to me because of how the show portrays and destroys the Tyrells, and it's clouded how I think about them when I read the books. I've only read the books once, but I intend to read them again, as I think it'll be a whole different read for me. What are your thoughts on the Tyrells book related? She says she's going to go eat loads of food and curl up into a ball. Have a good day, Lady Jade.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks, Lady Jade. Always good to hear from you. Yeah, that's interesting. So,
first of all, can I just say I'm glad that even while she's nursing a hangover, she's still going to go to a festival because the best way to avoid a hangover is to keep drinking.
Right. Yep.
And also that your thoughts are with us when you're hungover. We appreciate it.
Right. Exactly. That definitely makes us feel good.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is a doctor that listens to the show who will say, guaranteed, bend the knee is the best cure for a hangover. In addition to drinking. So.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, House Tyrell. They actually. You remember we were reading in A World of Ice and Fire about how they didn't commit their forces necessarily, or all of their forces, to during the battle with Aegon the Conqueror. And how that's basically how they won the seat. Am I wrong in that?
Nope. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and that's how they won the seat from, or that's how they won Highgarden, right, from the Gardeners. Yeah. So they've always been kind of scheming and things, and I think in the show we do get kind of led to believe that Mace Tyrell is just kind of an idiot,
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Even in the books a little bit,
right?
Too.
In the books too, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, but I can see like in the books, I actually love the idea. There's a character, Willis Tyrell, who is they're trying to betroth Sansa to, right?
Yeah.
They want Sansa to actually marry their brother Willis, and he is the heir to Highgarden. And I think let me just see here real quick. He had an issue with his leg. I know that.
Yeah.
So
he's like a limp, I think, or something.
Right. Yeah. So Willis is crippled with a bad leg. He's often noted as a studious, educated, kind, renowned for feeding or for breeding the finest hawks, hounds, horses, etc. So a very intelligent, studious, type of character. The way I look at it, when I first read this, I thought he just has like a bum knee. Like maybe he got in an accident or something happened to his knee. I don't know. There's not a whole lot there, and I like to think of it as maybe somebody who went out one day and I don't really know what the medicine is like, necessarily, or how well the Maesters could have maybe healed like a dislocated knee or something that he really jacked up in his leg, and so he could have been this once, I don't know, not that it would have been like a knight or whatever, but I don't know. His brother knows how to fight, right? Loras knows how to fight.
Yeah, Loras is really good. Yeah.
I don't know. Just interesting. I think they were trying to, play the Game of Thrones there and hook. We'll have Sansa marry Willis. So that definitely.
Well, in the books, Marjorie and Loras are all still alive, as is Lady Olenna. So their storyline is so far removed from from the show, where the show is they all die. Now it could happen the same way, and I think that would be an interesting way of doing it. But Kevin Lannister is also there at the Sept of Baelor in the show, and he gets like blown up with them. So I'm wondering who is going to fill that role, right? In the books. And Mace Tyrell is there as well. And so I don't know. To me, they seem far more crafty in the books than they do in the show. So I think it may go a little different.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and remember, Loras Tyrell is at he's at the sea. He's like a siege, right? He's like, no, that totally doesn't happen in the show.
Right. Yeah, that was something I was going to mention, is that he's actually over. Doesn't he? He gets real
injured,
been out of shape about. He's definitely always on his deathbed. They make it seem like that he might actually not make it. I have a feeling that he will. I can still see Marjorie and Mace and others who are at King's Landing being killed at the Sept. I can see that happening, but knowing that you have more to that family, and Willis and perhaps Loras, I think is interesting. So I don't know.
Yeah. And is Lady Olenna going to have a similar thing where she tells Jaime, "Oh, I was the one who did it," right? You know what I mean? I don't know. So
yeah,
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hold on a second here? I just noticed something. There is no way. Um, wow, where I totally missed this. This is a quote from the book. Garland. Is it Garland?
Mm-hmm.
Garland Tyrell.
Mm-hmm.
Sir Garland Tyrell, known as Garland the Gallant, is a knight of House Tyrell and the second son of Lord Mace Tyrell. Honestly, did not know that they had another son.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. That adds some depth in my mind to their family. Tyrion's talking to him. He said, "If I'm ever hanged again, the first thing I'll do is hang all the singers." Garland said, "A valiant deed unsung is no less valiant."
Yeah, and he's married to a Fossaway, isn't he? Isn't it Lynette Fossaway? Yeah.
Is he? Wow.
Oh, sorry, I had a quick little disconnect there.
Yep.
This is the power of the Weirwood Network. But this does not count as the only time we've ever had to stop it. I mean, It is a time that we have now had to stop it, but it doesn't count as the one. It was beforehand. So
right. So this would make the second time that we've had to do that.
This is the second time. Yeah.
It's not the one that we have the competition going for, because this one's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So.
Oh, it's funny. So it's, somewhere along the way there, I was talking about just the idea that I was mentioning Garland and my revelation that he was a member of the Tyrell family, and also that at the end of A Dance of Dragons, Kevin Lannister there is trying to hook up. Well, he thinks Mace is trying to hook Willis up with Marcella.
Yeah,
he thinks that could be his end game there, possibly, and so everybody's watching everybody, and it's something. But Willis is actually a character I'd love to kind of see come into into the light, I guess. So
so all right here. So now we're going to talk a little bit about this. Look at the group. Sir Ezra I saw it, and it's been kind of blowing up, and everyone's been talking about it. And it's just something we've been talking about. The idea of Gendry is she Cersei's mother? So Lord Adam Parker had posted and said Gendry's mother is Cersei, which means Jon Snow is the heir to the Iron Throne. And then we kind of gonna see what everyone's kind of talking about this, because I think it's interesting here. So we have Lady Steph Renna here. I really like this theory, but I'm in the middle of a storm of swords, and Gendry was talking to Arya and Edric about how he remembers his mother always having different men coming and going from the tavern. So either Cersei isn't his mother, or the Lannisters paid some other blonde woman to take him in. So this is her first read, so maybe there's something she's missing. Excuse me. And then people just going on before here. Sam the Hammer. I can see where the RB plus CL equals G theory comes from, but it's not one that I buy into. It's quite a passive action for Cersei, not to mention the Maggie the Mage prophecy. Irrespective, though, why would it have a positive impact on Jon's position in the line of succession? And Adam Parker responded, because if Gendry is truly the son of King Robert and Queen Cersei, then he'd be the heir to the Iron Throne. However, it's a usurped throne, and if Jon is the son of R plus L, then he is the heir to the Targaryen throne. So, like I'm saying, it doesn't really matter about Gendry's parentage.
Okay. So can I real quickly?
Go ahead.
Just in that, there's, because I kind of wondered out the gate. Gendry's mother is Cersei, which means Jon Snow is the heir to the Iron Throne, and the idea, if it is a usurped throne, then really whoever that's Dany's whole claim, right? That's Dany's whole claim, is that it's been the usurper and his dogs, took the throne away, and she's, the true heir, etc. And so time for her to take her throne. So I get what he's saying there, 100%. And that, if Jon is then the son of, Rhaegar and Lyanna, then that bad boy is his. It is his. And so, but it generated such a good discussion about then who is Gendry's mother, which is what we got into this past week. So sorry, we'll continue on here. No,
that's fine. And we'll keep going, and then we'll kind of talk about all of it. Greg Tavaro here, who is he says the Targaryens lost the right to the throne to the Baratheons. They can't take it back. they can take it back with the Force, but no Targaryen is the heir anymore. And to keep going here, some other people are saying, I don't see, Melissa Ryan says, I don't see Cersei giving up her child to be raised in a tavern regardless of her feelings for Robert.
Okay.
Spencer James, interesting. So when Cersei spoke of having a miscarriage, she actually gave the baby away to be raised by someone else, so the child wouldn't threaten the claim to the throne of any of the child of her and Jaime's.
And that's a good point.
That is a good point.
That Spencer's making there is that, like, because I was trying, when we were having this discussion originally, I was trying to wrap my head around what would cause her to do something like this, and it's basically if she had future plans to, have children with Jaime, kind of like the Targaryens, and this, it's her way of getting through, then yeah, she would need to off that child, Robert's child, in some way,
right.
But maybe she doesn't have the heart to kill the baby, but definitely needs it to be, raised elsewhere.
Yeah. And really, and one last comment here in this group by Robbie Jameson, who is Sir Robbie of Newcastle. I really like this theory too, especially since I'm sure she says something like she couldn't have this child around as she would hate him. That's why I think she has paid to have someone look after him. I also believe Joffrey suspected this and had all the bastardized half-brothers killed off. And then Sir Ezra says, guys, this is some effing serious around the fire hedge knights discussion. I love it. Yeah, this is what the group is for. I'm not in the group as much as I would like to be. Sometimes I just don't have the time, and I get in and it's just blowing up and people are always commenting and stuff. And I love it. And it's really good, and I'm really glad that everyone is cordial and the group practically runs itself, which is really great. But so this theory is one we've been kind of talking about for the past couple of weeks. It is more of a show theory than a book theory, just to kind of say again. But it draws kind of some inspiration from the book as well. But I think there's kind of two things to address here. One, people's kind of take on is Cersei Gendry's mother, and then two, what does that mean to Jon and his claim to the throne? So I'll kind of start with the claim to the Iron Throne, because I think that's actually really interesting. So the way I see it, the true king, so Robert takes the throne. So that means without question, it is his. Just like Aegon took the Seven Kingdoms, it's his until somebody else takes it from him, Aegon the Conqueror. So Robert takes the throne, it is his. The law outlaws a woman from holding it, right? I mean, that is an old Targaryen law, but as far as we know, it hasn't been
precedent.
Right. It hasn't been changed.
Yeah.
Which that precedent, however, is never mentioned in the show. I do think it will be interesting if it comes up in the books, right? Like if Cersei takes it, if someone tries to challenge her with that, like if we see in the books, or if Dany tries to take it and somebody can kind of challenge her with that, saying there is the precedent. That's what the whole Dance of the Dragons is about, right? So that is one thing that is interesting. So that is something else that when Robert dies, I don't think you could say Dany has a legit claim to the throne because she is a woman, even though she is a Targaryen line. I don't know. So there's that. The way I see it is Stannis is the true actual king, especially in the books where he's still alive. Because Robert dies, and as far as we know, Gendry is not legitimized, so none of Robert's bastards are legitimized, so that would make his brother then the king, since we know that Joffrey and Cersei's kids with Jaime are not legit. So that, to me, makes Stannis Baratheon the actual king of Westeros.
I hear you. Yeah. Okay. So let me take this in a couple of different ways. As you started with, okay, you're still there. So who is next? Who is the king? And I'm with you on it can be taken. It can, like, once it's taken, it's yours, right? So they all recognize Robert Baratheon as king because he took the throne, from Aerys, and then Rhaegar after the Mad King is killed. Well, whatever, he took the throne. I think everything, as you've often said, Sir Matt, from a certain point of view, If you're a Targaryen, then no. If
Mm-hmm.
and if you were the during Aegon's conquest, and you had the Seven Kingdoms, and they actually were ruled by kings, for a long time. No, there was still a lot of this sort of like they got to keep that. The best thing that the Conqueror did was allow them to keep their seats and raise them, to the different wardens and
Right.
and things of that nature. These regents, right? But so yeah, I understand what you're saying about it going to Stannis. Now let's assume, so if Dany comes back, and as you say, Stannis is the one true king, and she takes it by force, it's hers.
Yes.
If it's going to be someone like Jon Snow, same thing. He's got to take it by force under what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think, though, here's the thing: if nothing were to happen by force, you could get into what we got into back in 101, which is, well, actually even during Aegon the Unlikely, these great councils where you bring together different people, and it's sort of like, okay, who do we choose? No one's going to usurp the throne, etc. Who's next in line, type of thing. And typically they're going off based off of the most recent king and his heirs. But you could have a situation with the Baratheons where they might bring in, different. Well, it's kind of like what they were going to do with Bloodraven was going to bring in one of the Blackfires, possibly. You could bring in different contenders and really have the realm almost elect a king. In a sense, which would be kind of crazy. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that the Marcella Baratheon, they're actually trying, in the book, that's Dorne's big push, is that they believe that she can be the queen, and that after Joffrey, she should be next up, and they have a close relationship with her. She's there, and they want to make her, queen. So there's that whole sub sort of side plot there with the Sand Snakes and the princesses there, and Dorne trying to get her on the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they're working against, though, that precedent that was set by the old king. Basically, looking over, I think it was a Rhaenys, either Rhaenys or Rhaenyra. No, not Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra was Dance of Dragons. I think it was a Rhaenys. They looked over his granddaughter. He looked over her and went to his eldest grandson.
Right.
And so that was the precedent. And then again, that was something, though, that was looked over, though, by Viserys for Rhaenyra, in the Dance of Dragons, as he said, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and name her queen. And so he did that. So I can get where maybe Cersei, I can get why Dorne is pushing for Marcella to be the queen. And I can also see how the movie took this whole situation with Cersei to the next level, where she's naming herself queen.
Right. Well, let's talk about the show right now, because in the books, Tommen is still alive and still king. And you have Stannis and, perhaps Jon, that whole angle. But if we just talk about the show,
perhaps
so right
Marcella.
now, right. Yeah. So Marcella's out. So, and Stannis. So in the show, you have Cersei, who just kind of takes it, I think, just because she's kind of there and nobody's going to question it. But, so really the only two options left, I would say, are you have Cersei, and let's just say Cersei dies in the Battle of the Night King. This is just total hypothetical here. And then the throne is left open, and they're like, well, let's reinstill a Targaryen. And then they would assume, Daenerys, I guess, just because why not? And that precedent isn't in the show, right? You can't have a female king, right, or queen ruling the Seven Kingdoms. So, then are they going to find out, well, it's Jon, and then, okay, that's the route they go? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And it is a little bit more, I don't know, man. Things seem to make a little bit more sense the way, well, we have some background as for why you can make these cases, I think, in the book.
Right,
who
for
should
sure.
be
In the books,
next up. And it's just sort of like, it's hard with the show because they can't, and that's fine. But it's tough to make a case, for anybody in the show. I think sometimes I don't know.
But But this is what the whole Gendry thing. What I find interesting is if Gendry were actually the true son, because the whole Gendry being Cersei's kid is more of a show thing, right? So I do think it would be super interesting if that is the way they went in the show, where it is revealed, hey, Gendry is Cersei and Robert's son. Well, then that would very legitimately make Gendry the true heir to the Iron Throne.
Well, yeah, I get so you almost have to separate the Targaryen claims from who is actually in line,
right,
based off of Robert's reign, moving forward. And really the only time I guess that you would bring the Targaryens back into it is if there's they have to take it back by force. Only way that they can do it. But,
you know what?
Yeah.
I just thought of something. Well, I don't know, because Cersei is pregnant right now, and there's no way that you could argue that would be Robert's kid that she's pregnant with, because it's it's so far removed. I was about to say maybe I was thinking about the timeline. That sucks, because if that had worked, then she could be like, well, this is Robert's last son, right? You know what I mean? Or whatever,
gotcha.
last kid. And then so she's like, I'm just regent until this unborn baby comes about.
Oh, gotcha.
That timeline doesn't work at all, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, another thing, you said this, and I actually think you're talking about who's Gendry's mother, that being more show than it is book. I think the reason the conversation's happening in the group is because we went into that chapter where they go to meet him, and I think there's a lot more suspicious stuff going on there than what we realized.
Yeah.
The timeline, I think the year in which he was born is another big indicator that it could have been Cersei. So there is book.
There is definitely book precedent. Yeah, it could totally happen. It could totally happen in the books. It's just the only thing, the thing about it is with the show is that we have this. There is this conversation in the show that Cersei does actually have a kid that dies, right? Or is taken away, where we don't have that in the books. So
what we do have in the go ahead.
So, do we?
So in the books, when she's talking to Ned, remember we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that she lied to him. Why would she say that? I had she would never tell Ned the truth there. She makes it. She almost has like this malice in her voice that she made sure that Robert's child would never, come to life, right? Truly be born. And I thought, I'm like, you can see right through that lie. She would never tell Robert's best friend that they actually had a legitimate heir, And I almost wonder if he, I know that's actually his point of view there that we're looking at, but I almost wonder if there's, a thought that I could go back and look at again that maybe he's thinking like, wow, she's totally lying, and maybe there is something going on there. Yeah. So I don't know.
And one thing I think about with the show is sometimes we do get scenes in the show that aren't in the books, but because the books still aren't written, what do the showrunners know that we don't?
Yep.
Right? Because if you go watch, I think the easiest thing is we always think about, well, the books, they have all this stuff that isn't in the show. Well, I think sometimes the show, the way it does things is because it is aware of what happens, right? So go watch season 1 and watch Jaime Lannister. If you read the first book, Jaime Lannister never has a point of view, and he's really not in it that much. He's always seen from afar, except for his one conversation, with Ned in the streets. That's pretty much it of what you get of Jaime. But because, all the books are out, that scene in the show where Jaime is talking to Ned in the throne room, and he's talking about how it was such a terrible thing that happened to his, his brother and his dad. You and I have rewatched that scene, and Ned Stark kind of takes it as an insult. But knowing Jaime's character, I think Jaime actually, at least in the show, kind of believes it. It was a terrible thing. And he does actually maybe think he was having some justice when he stabbed the Mad King in the back, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're right. Sometimes
so that scene where Cersei and Robert are talking about the baby that they lost, which is the idea of this Gendry theory. Maybe it's something that hasn't been said yet that's in the books that we don't know, but the showrunners do, because the showrunners and Gur have obviously communicated with each other about how it's probably going to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good point. That's a good point.
So
anyway. Yeah. What's cool about that is that's why we have to watch the show. I mean, that's why we were so excited when it moved on, because you're like,
because that's the most that I think is what makes that's what makes Game of Thrones so interesting, is that this is the first, and we've said it before, this is the first thing I can think of where the show or like movies are ahead of like the books. It's crazy because it's always the other way around. It's like people watch the movie and everyone's like, the books are better, because those people have read the books. They know what's going to happen. And and this is interesting because it's so weird. It's just so bizarre. I cannot think of anything else where this has happened. So
yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, good point. Okay. All right. I think that was a good discussion there. Good stuff going on in the Facebook group. If you haven't checked out the Facebook group, you definitely need to go check that out. Got some good conversation in there. One last final thing. Daniel Couts just kind of said, "I don't buy it."
Yep.
So I love just like the straight up like, no, I'm out.
Nope,
so kind of cool. Okay, I think let's see. Let's move on here with Ravens. We've got. Is this our last Raven?
No, we have a small. Well, no, we kind of got two more here. We got a big one here from the old Ghost of Harrenhal.
Right. Yeah, we got the Ghost, and then I think. Okay. Yeah. Let's read this here. This is actually pretty well laid out, and I want to thank the Ghost, for sending this. Each and every week we get something pretty awesome, and so this is neat. This will stimulate some good conversation here. So this is about Jeor Mormont and Jorah. Mormont, and kind of talking about their roles. So if Jorah was a double agent, could his papa be one too? Diving into the late great Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, I found some interesting passages. He's pleading with Craster and says, Thorin Smallwood claimed you were a friend to the Watch. He doesn't seem too familiar with Craster. I want to believe he doesn't know about the sacrifices. And I get that. Actually, in the show, it actually kind of seems like Jeor Mormont actually, the Lord Commander up there, does know about the sacrifices. Mm-hmm. And I think the hope here by the Ghost and myself is that he doesn't know. So that association through a friend, I heard that you were a friend to the Watch. Yeah. That would lead you to believe that he doesn't really know Craster that well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So he rode between two goalposts, one bearing a ram's skull and the other the skull of a bear. Is this bear skull mounted outside Craster's keep significant for the commander's house? Oh, wow. The ram is the house sigil for Ramdon and his three sons, one slain on Dragonstone, defending the castle's sept against Cersei's men. The other two burned alive as sacrifices to R'hllor by that big-eared, toothy Queen Selyse. Mm-hmm. That's funny. So yeah, is that significant? Those two skulls outside of Craster's keep. That's something Gur would do, right?
That is something Gur would do. Is it a warning, or is it an invitation? Like, you're safe here, kind of a thing, as like a I don't know. The dragon skulls, right? The dragon skulls in the Red Keep were they were honoring the dragons, not like, oh, we've killed the dragons.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Honored them. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah, because you could. I get with the dragon skulls. You could, like, let's say you did. You took the throne there. Wow, I almost fell out of my chair, man. That's literally almost fell out of my chair over here.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh, that's the time Sir Ezra just almost
fell out of the chair.
Face planted in front of his screen. No, so with the dragons, let's say you had killed those dragons and you wanted to display their skulls as you're like, we could do this to you too, type of thing, or like, beware because, look what I can do type of thing. So that's interesting. Let's see. Let's move on here. Another quote. I have a son. The Lord Commander's face was stiff. I'm glad for you. Oh, okay. So this is so the first quote there. I have a son. That is said by Craster, and the Lord Commander's face was stiff. I am glad for you. Maybe he truly does know about the sacrifices, but a stiff face isn't an admission of knowledge. So still pulling for the this idea that maybe he doesn't know about the sacrifices there.
Right.
So what do you think, Sir Matt? Do you think he knows? Do you think he doesn't know?
I don't know.
Yeah. Because he in the show, they definitely play up that he does.
Right.
They definitely play up that like he's, telling even Sam and different people just stay away from the wives, etc. Don't interfere in things. Like it's real, interesting. It's a weird relationship that he has with this guy too. Beyond the wall, right?
It is, and because I don't know. Maybe he knows how powerful like the others are. And it's like even he's like, well, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, the Night's Watch is meant to guard the realm, right? And it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you do it. So,
yeah,
I mean, if it's kind of like, well, if you knew making these sacrifices is what prevented it, would you keep making them?
Yeah, that's a good point. So.
Perhaps like the lives of one to save the lives of of thousands.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I think is interesting is that like, is this not a wildling in their eyes?
Yeah.
These are wildlings.
They don't care about the wildlings. Yeah.
Yeah, and so why is it that they just don't? I think if it were nowhere else, would the Lord Commander, I guess, be like leave this man be. We're just here, eating some of his food, taking shelter. You know what I'm saying? They go out and they're hunting down these wildlings.
Right. Well, the other thing is that what's interesting is you have Craster essentially making sacrifices to the others, right? Who this comes into the whole great other thing. But then you have Melisandre kind of doing the same thing, right? Like she burns Stannis' daughter to give power to the Lord of Light, right? So that the Lord of Light, will give power back. So it's interesting. And then you have Jon who, or have like Davos, right, in the show, is like freaking out, like, what? You know what I mean? Like is going on.
Right.
And so it's just interesting. So, I don't know. Like there's something there. I think that it is quite interesting, and that you have both sides kind of doing it. So.
Yeah, well, and it's weird to think that Craster is like the opposite to like a Melisandre, just kind of weird. So okay, let's move on a little bit here though. The Ghost goes on to say, there had been no attacks while they had been at Craster's, neither whites nor others, nor would there be. Craster said, a godly man got no cause to fear such. I said that much to Mance Rayder once, when he come sniffing around. He never listened. No more in you crows with your swords and your bloody fires. That won't help you when the white cold comes. Only the gods will help you then. You best get right with the gods.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There we go. That makes it sound like I'm picking my side. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you can't beat them, join them.
Is that a god that you can worship? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I would imagine. I mean,
I guess so.
I mean, we see people worship every kind of god, right? I mean, the many-faced god, it seems like, Jack and Jahar, or like the kindly man or whoever is training Arya, seems like they seem to think, worshiping that god is okay. And they're like, this god has many different names, right? And they call him the stranger, things like that. So.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So the Ghost goes on to kind of describe what happens here next. The mutiny kind of goes down. Sam is holding Jeor's sweet dead head in his lap. And then Craster's ladies, Gilly and the babe, come up to Sam and say they need to leave now, and the others will be there very soon. They know there is another brother to come for. The others just know. The wives know that they need to leave or die. Why these babies? Craster wasn't anything special, or is it that old blood, just like the 13th Lord Commander, who became the first of the Cold Woman's brood?
Mm-hmm.
All these sons and brothers have the old blood from the first to the last. Craster worships the old gods. Melisandre worships R'hllor. But all these gods are keen on blood sacrifice. If Craster warned Mance, does that mean Mance does not worship the old gods? Mayhaps he is from Dorne with all his southern songs.
Mm-hmm.
The Dornish still worship Mother Royne and the Seven, if at all. It is said religion isn't a bad thing there. Isn't a big thing, excuse me, there. So, and this is something, I believe this is a quote from Jeor as he is dying. All, the fist, the wildlings, dragonglass, this, all, tell my son, Jorah. Tell him, take the black. My wish, dying wish, tell Jorah, forgive him, my son, please go. I mean, gosh, makes me want to cry.
Yeah, that's that's from Samwell 30.
30. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, A Storm of Swords. Otherwise, Samwell XXX.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that, and the fist. I just wanted to just
Good Lord. Oh gosh.
Just because everyone lost it last week when I said that. So. Good
grief. I would not have made that connection. Sam is in Old Town right now, which makes me think he would definitely rendezvous with Jorah and Dany at some point to fulfill the Commander Mormont's dying wish. Jorah would be an amazing Lord Commander if he took the black. Old Town has many possible allies for Dany, and hopefully is her first stop.
Yeah.
A couple PSs here real quick. Some things to clear up here from the Ghost. The different metals, talking about the maesters, kind of their chain.
Yeah.
The different kind of represent the different kinds of learning. Gold is for the study of money and accounts. Silver for healing. Iron for warcraft. Just got some of that. Some good info there on the chains from John 5 in Game of Thrones. And then down here in Eddard 7 of A Game of Thrones, it is said that his keep was a grim place where servants disappeared unaccountably, and even the dogs were afraid to enter the hall. And there had been a sister who had died young and under queer circumstances, and the fire that had disfigured his brother, and the hunting accident that had killed their father. So that is in reference to Sandor the Hound,
right? Did have a sister,
and his brother, the Mountain, basically saying that that they had a sister
and a family, and right? When he talks about his family,
right, yeah. And so that was brought up. I think I was kind of like, really, wow, I want to go look at that in context and things. And so the Ghost is reiterating, and he definitely had a family. I swear it. Good sirs.
Yeah, so, no, always good points from the Ghost of Harrenhal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I don't know. I think it would be super awesome if that's the way in which Jeor Mormont comes back and is redeemed, in some way, and that he goes to the wall, and does his thing there, and guards the realms of men, So I think that'd be really neat. So
no, for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else there?
Nope. Just we have one last Raven here. This is just another one we're pulling from the group. From Zakar McAllister. He was just talking about when we had talked about if Aerys had been the king. Aerys had the was the dad of Cersei and Jaime. We had kind of talked about that. He's saying I think like the timeline fits better if Aerys had fathered the twins instead of Tyrion. That made me remember a place in A Feast for Crows where Jaime is talking to his aunt at I think River Run, and at the end of their conversation, she states that while Jaime has always thought of himself as Tywin's son, Tyrion is more truly the son of Tywin Lannister. Could this be more evidence that Tyrion is the only true-born Lannister? Sorry if this has already been discussed. Also, is there any reason Tyrion would have the dragon dreams if he is actually a Lannister and not a secret Targaryen?
Wow, interesting. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, why does he have dragon dreams? You know,
Exactly.
is that something he can just? I mean, and here's the thing: is it because there's different types of dragon dreams, right? You've got what Dany has, which is where the dragon awakes and like
Right.
literally comes to her, speaks to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she's actually seen things, and we know from whether it's a World of Ice and Fire, or just the history is actually really just the series. You can kind of tell that she's seeing her older brother. She's seeing Rhaegar. She's seeing different things in her dragon dreams. I don't know that Tyrion. I can't. I'd have to go look him up, but his seemed, anyways, more like just he was dreaming about dragons and that he likes them, sort of like any kid could dream about being a dragon rider.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know. That's just me.
Right.
Just me.
And there is also a difference between dragon dreams and like green dreams. There's definitely a difference there. Yeah, I don't know. He could just be dreaming of dragons because he thinks they're cool. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to. That's what I was trying to think about there. I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna look up dragon dreams real quick in Game of Thrones here. His other point, though, let's see. The idea that with the timeline, fitting better. That we had said that, correct, Sir Matt?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just that it seems to fit a little bit better with the idea that Jaime and Cersei might not be, Lannisters. And I really think the comment from his aunt is because I do kind of remember somewhere. I couldn't put my finger on where exactly that was at. Maybe it was River Run. I don't know which book that was, but it's mentioned a couple times. I think actually that Tyrion is more his father's, son, just because of his conniving nature.
Right. And Jaime is really the one who's like least like them, right? Like Jaime is like kind of like I'm just kind of doing my own thing, So it is interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Jaime is kind of actually like the least Lannister like. in his own way. I mean, I don't know. It's just Jaime kind of just is like, I just, love my sister. And like, that's kind of it. Which, is whatever. But yeah, I mean, like outside of that, like, I mean, we don't really, he does kind of have that moment where he's like, maybe I should have done more as kind of like a father and, stuff like that. So.
Right. Another thing, people make the case that that Jon Snow seems to have a lack of dragon dreams.
That's true.
And that his are, he's warging in and out of his out of Ghost quite a bit. So that's interesting to me. When I think about it, I would need to go look up all the different references where, I think at one point Tyrion is. We had talked about it earlier in this book, I think, where Tyrion is talking to Jon and they're up on the wall or somewhere near the wall, and he talks about him having just dreams about dragons, right? And how silly it was, type of thing, right? And just that they're dreamers, I guess. So yeah. Well, actually, no. Okay. This is just a reference to, I think, Game of Thrones. So, Jon Snow, in A Storm of Swords. Let's see. He gives a page number, but that's not going to help us. Had another friend. He goes, I had another friend who dreamed of dragons, a dwarf. And he goes on to tell him about some of the dreams that he had, and so he's referring back to Tyrion again in A Storm of Swords. A couple books later, talking about a friend who had dreams of dragons, right? And then I get it, some of that can also be misleading, right? It's meant to be misleading, that's something, Ger could be working towards, because when you look up, I guess, dragon dreams, it's really those that are affected or have the blood of the dragon, and who are known to have premonitions, or the ability to see things. And it's similar, as you said, to green dreams and green sight.
So maybe they just see dragons in their dreams because dragons are coming back.
Yeah, that, also it's sort of like what's
And
almost like a
sometimes
spirit.
dragons represent people, right? Like it doesn't actually represent an actual dragon.
Yeah, sure.
Like when in the Hedge Knight, Darren Targaryen sees, a dragon being slain, and Dunk is the one doing it. Well, Duncan doesn't actually kill a Targaryen. He is just I mean, in a roundabout way, he kind of does. It's, Baelor Breakspear dies kind of because of his trial of 7, but he isn't the one that actually kills him.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So,
but still sees a dragon. Yeah.
And really, it seems like almost all the dragon dreams that actually happen are totally misinterpreted. I mean, they happen, but the way people interpret them are totally different. Because then we see Daemon Targaryen, or Daemon Blackfyre II, have a dream of a dragon emerging at that tourney at Whitehall, and it's actually Aegon, Prince Aegon, who becomes Aegon V, Egg, and he's thinking, oh, we have an egg, it's going to hatch, and it's actually Aegon who's like, no, I'm no longer, going around as Egg. I'm going to go around as Aegon now, and he's wearing the ring and all that kind of stuff. So there's a Targaryen, he's a Blackfyre, but he's still a Targaryen, who's misinterpreting a dragon dream about, dragons. And so they're, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't know. When I think about Tyrion and his dragon dreams, I like to go back and look more about like, what did he actually see? Is there anything, a prophecy type nature to them, that type of stuff. So, yeah.
Right.
But good thoughts. I mean, it's definitely a theory for a reason, because we're bringing it up, several books later. John's referring back to his friend, who dreams of dragons, know?
Yep.
So, okay.
So,
alrighty.
All right. Well, I think that is it for our show here. Yeah, guys, we just want to thank you for kind of as we're trying to figure out all this new way of recording, putting up with my summer chill.
Yeah.
Here, I'm sure I sound awful. So. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, Sir Ezra, I think it's time to sign off. And in the words of House Targaryen, fire and